this is Mochi, and I'll be talking about my first experience with composting in a low urban apartment. I went with the 2-compartment retaining compost bin, so I didn't need to have any downtimes. I began with watching YouTube tutorials and looking at articles from which I drew a common conclusion: at least half must be nitrogen, which are food scraps, and the other half must be carbon, which are all the leaves and paper. Living in an apartment, I didn't have the courage to walk around scavenging leaves on the sidewalk, so I decided my whole source of carbon was going to be from paper and newspapers. So from then on, I became a paper hoarder. Many of the composting tutorials suggested worms, but I didn't like them personally, so I just did it without them. Though I did end up getting maggots in the bin eventually, because I guess the food scraps attracted them. They do help with decomposing, but on every rainy day they would come out and crawl all over the balcony. Gnats also appeared quite quickly, constantly trying to find ways to end their lives in our house. I tried putting mesh on my bin to keep them out, but due to my skills, they managed to come out anyways. After all this, I looked up tips on reducing maggots. Overall, they suggested to rotate your bin a lot, because maggots like still damp places, put on a lot of carbon, paper in my case, and end their lives with lime. Don't know if they helped much personally, because I probably misapplied these solutions. Basically just rotate it as much as possible, add more water if it's too dry, and add more paper if it's too wet. On my first go, I was quite unhappy with how the compost turned out. It smelled and looked like a horse farm. It was absolutely nothing like in these photos. To my belief, the reason was due to not putting enough carbon. There's this legend here. It's said to put twice as much carbon than to nitrogen. But it turned out to be fine. As the days went on, it became brown and soil looking. One time I took it out and some living maggots were still squirming around in it, so I put them back in the tray and left them there for several days. Magically, when I checked again, they were gone. Luckily, I lived on the second floor with a very large balcony surrounded with some bushes, so every time I took out the decomposed compost, I yeeted them into the bushes. It was convenient. When I first began, you can smell the bin from 5 meters away. It was really unpleasant. Flies and gnats flew around everywhere and it made me cry. The best solution was to put a ton of paper, cardboard or newspaper into the compost, and the smell was gone after a few days. And I think that was it. Yep. Thank you. Feel free to comment any suggestions or extra tips.